He's opposed to more refugees coming here. But first he wants
He's
more,
right.
more information. From
Governor Baker's right. He doesn't want refugees coming here. He happens to be right.
Yeah, I mean, he wants more information.
We'll see what happens. Let's see where he goes. But right now, he said he doesn't want them coming here, and he's right.
So there's 85, his administration says 85 Syrian refugees that have come here this year. What should happen to them in your
85 which?
Syrian refugees?
Look, I said that if I win, if they come here, they're going back. That's what I said. Because we can't take a chance on ISIS. It could be the great Trojan horse. We cannot take a chance that some of these people coming in are ISIS. And I will tell you, and I've said it loud and clear, I've told it to everybody, if for any reason, and I hope it's going to happen because I'm going to make the country great again, but if I win, they're going back. They're going back. Now, I'm all for building safe zones. I think it's a great idea. I think it's frankly the least expensive idea. I think it's the best, and it's the best for everybody concerned. But when I look at that migration going through all of Europe, and what's happening to Europe is unbelievable. You just have to call up your friends that live in Europe. They can tell you what's happening to Europe is unbelievable. The best thing they can do is build safe zones in Syria. It'll be the least expensive, and I think it's going to be the best for the people in the migration.
And how do you respond to critics who say this victimizes women and children?
You know what? It's very interesting, and I've been looking at the migration now for a long time, and I don't see very many women or children. I see men that are very strong and very young. And I'm saying, why are there so many men? And I've been saying this, and a couple of other people have picked it up. But I said, why are there so many men, and so young, and so strong, that look like soldiers? Why aren't they fighting for their country? It's very interesting. This could be a Trojan horse. I hope it's not. I doubt it. You know, if we take in thousands and thousands, if we have 5 that come in that are ISIS, look at the damage they did, a small number, in Paris. Look at the damage they've done. So I said very strongly, if I win, if I become president, they're going back.
Mr.
We're going to do it nicely, we're going to do it humanely, they'll probably be happy to go back in a certain way. And I will tell you, we're going to do safe zones, and we're not going to fund it, we're going to have other people, but we're going to do safe zones. That's the best way to do it.
Mr. Trump, you said that you would like to bomb the hell out of ISIS.
I would bomb the hell out of ISIS,
We're
yes.
already bombing ISIS, so what
Okay,
would
good.
you do
That's good. Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
What would you do differently than what we're doing now?
I would, well, first of all, we're not. Other people are. We're not bombing. We're not doing much. We have a president that thinks that ISIS has been contained. We have a president that doesn't know what's happening. So when you say we're bombing, we're not bombing. We're doing very little. But when you look at what's happening with Russia and France and other places, there are a lot of bombs being dropped, but we're doing relatively little compared to others.
So you're saying you would increase the frequency of airstrikes, and what would you do differently?
I would increase the frequency like you wouldn't believe. I would start working on the internet because they're recruiting through the internet. We are being, look, the internet was our baby, and yet they are taking over the internet, and they're recruiting from the internet. I will also stop, anybody goes over to fight for ISIS, they're not coming back into this country. They're gone. They're gone permanently, never. They're not coming back. We have people go over, they fight for ISIS, and then we let them back.
So anyway,
Somebody said it's their civil rights. Give me a break. So when people leave this country, they go to fight for ISIS, they never will come back, ever. Yes?
Mr. Trump. Governors have made a big issue out of this. They've said
The governor?
No, many governors,
Yeah.
including our governor. 31 governors, I think, have now said
They should make a big
they won't
issue.
allow refugees and immigrants.
Sure.
in. This isn't a power they have, though. This is up to the federal government. The federal government has authority over immigration and refugee policy. If you're elected president, is that something you would change? Would you delegate?
I'd certainly be listening to the governors. You have tremendous numbers of governors, some on the Democrat side, but you have tremendous numbers of governors that feel that this is insanity to take these people in when we have no idea who they are, no documents, they are totally undocumented. We have no idea who they are. We don't know good, bad, and different. How can you do it? So you have governors that are very much opposed to it, and I agree with those governors 100%.
But Mr. Trump, would you like to see them would you like to see states have authority over immigration and refugee policy?
Wouldn't bother me. It would bother Obama.
But should states
Because what
check
Obama's
out?
doing is incredible. If you watch that news conference the other day, I mean, he was primarily angry at the press and at the Republicans. It didn't look like he was angry at the people, the savages, that did all the destruction and ruined those lives and killed all those people. he was more angry at the press and the Republicans than he was at the people that did this horrible act.
But
Pretty
Mr. Trump,
sad.
Mr. Trump,
You read it in our-
should states be checking passports and papers on their borders?
I think the state should have certain powers. When Obama lets people in, and it's against, if you look at the will of the country is we need safety right now. We owe $19 trillion, we're a debtor nation, the country has no money, we're losing in every front, we're losing with ISIS, we're losing with trade, we're losing with everything. When you look at this, yeah, I think the governor should have something to say about it when they start stuffing their states with people that they don't want and that they're afraid to take. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking on National Public Radio yesterday, Senator John McCain said that the president has a choice. You can either wage the war here on our soil or overseas. And he said, it's obvious the president wants to wage the war on terror here. Do you think that's true?
Well, there's a certain amount of truth to it. I can't say it's true, but there's a certain amount of truth to it. We have to hit them very, very hard and very, very smart. We have to use our... We have to stop being so politically correct with everything, including the way we fight wars. You know, when I was growing up, we never lost a war. Now, if you look back over the last, fairly large number of years, we don't win wars anymore. If you remember, I said keep the oil. We should have never gone to Iraq. I said we should never go to Iraq. I said it in 2003, 2004, don't go. They sent a delegation from the White House to see me because it was getting a lot of press that I was saying you're making a mistake, you'll destabilize the entire Middle East. Okay, they went to Iraq. It was a big mistake. There were no weapons of mass destruction. So they go to Iraq. Now they're there. They spend $2 trillion, thousands of lives, wounded warriors all over the place, wounded warriors who I love, and all over. And what do we have in Iraq? We have nothing. And I said, take the oil. Take the oil. You will agree, right? I've been saying this for 2 years. Take the oil. So 2 days ago, they started hitting the oil. Now, they're not going to take the oil because they're not smart enough. But at least they started hitting the oil. But the oil is a primary source of wealth for ISIS. So I said, hit the oil. But before ISIS, I said, take the oil. If we would have taken the oil, you wouldn't even have ISIS right now. You wouldn't have even had it.
Mr.
Yes.
Trump.
Okay, go ahead. Hold it 1 second. Go ahead.
Some of your rivals, including Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush, have said that the United States should accept refugees who can prove that they're Christian. What is your reaction to that?
Well, I don't know if you can prove that they're Christian. First of all, I happen to be Christian, all right? I'm Protestant, and I would love to do that. Do you know that, but I have to prove it. You have to prove it. I mean, how are they proving it? Because I have a real concern that the people that are coming into this country are coming in for, some are coming in for very bad purposes. And they're coming all different ways, but they're coming in for some very, very bad reasons and bad purposes. If you know the history of Syria, we've been taking people from Syria, quite a few people prior to this whole mess that's happened over the last period of time. If you were Muslim, if you were a Muslim from Syria, you could get into this country, one of the easier places to come in. If you were a Christian from Syria, it was almost impossible to get in. And yet the Christians were having their heads cut off. It's the most unfair thing. This is during the Obama administration, and you can check it. If you were a Muslim and you came from Syria, you could get into the United States. If you were a Christian and you were from Syria, it was one of the hardest things to do, get into the United States. What's wrong with us?
Mr. Trump.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Trump, Worcester is the second largest city in New England. And there was a lot of talk about protests before your appearance. I only counted 15 guys outside in the second largest city in New England.
Right.
When you were in New York at Saturday Night Live, biggest city in North America,
almost
they had
that.
like 200 people over there.
Even less.
Who is
I
making...
like this question. You're right. I know
Who is making the fuss about these protesters? And if they're not drawing people to oppose you in a place as blue as Massachusetts, is this all overblown?
It's all overblown. It's all nonsense. So when I did Saturday Night Live, I heard about protest. So I sent my people out the day before. There were like 20 people. And it was all over the place, protests. Then the night of Saturday Night Live, I sent my people out. There was nobody. You know why? They all left. There were like less than, you said 200, there were like 40. but they all left to watch Saturday Night Live, okay? It's nonsense, but nobody reports that. But you do, that's why I like your question. And outside, I didn't even see any protesters. I'll tell you what I did see. I saw lines coming into this arena, which nobody will write about. I saw lines coming into this arena that were 4 or 5 blocks long. That it's amazing, actually. That the people that run the arena said they have never seen anything like this. There were lines, literally, that went all the way back 4 or 5 blocks. And people have said they've never seen anything like that coming in here. That's what I see. Well, as far as protesters, I saw none. You know,
Go
ahead. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, I want to go back to the refugee number.
Okay.
That 250,000, where does that number come from?
I heard it from many people, and I hear that that's the number that Obama would like.
You heard that from
Yeah, and let's see if I'm right. Hey, I was right about the oil. I was right about so many things. I was right about Osama bin Laden coming into our shores. We ought to take him out. In 2000, I wrote a book, and I said, Osama bin Laden, you better take him out. He's a bad guy. That was before the World Trade Center came down. When Joe Scarborough saw that, he said, whoa, this is incredible. This is incredible. He said this before the World Trade Center came down.
So that's your
I'm pretty good at
prediction?
predicting. Yeah, I think that's
It's a
what Obama
prediction,
wants.
not-
I think, on pretty good source, I think that Obama wants 250,000 of the migrants. I think he wants them to come in. Yes. I think the number is 250. You watch. I'll be right.
Mr. Trump,
I've been right about so many things. I've been right about the oil. I've been right about Osama bin Laden. I've been right about terrorism. In my book, I predicted terrorism, which some people say was a better prediction than even saying Osama bin Laden is going to come here and do damage. And by the way, if they were doing their job, they would have taken Osama bin Laden out before the World Trade Center came down. That I can tell you.
You've talked about shutting down mosques. You've talked about shutting down mosques
Yeah.
when you feel extremism is being developed. Are you willing to do the same for temples, churches, and synagogues?
I don't see anything happening.
So
I
why
don't
does
see
your full
anything
third defense of religious liberty only apply to
you know
apply
what?
to anybody that's
You
not?
know
a
what? Because I have common sense, okay?
So you're
When I
saying
look at
common
the
sense
hatred,
thing?
excuse me, when I look at the hatred, the unbelievable hatred coming from certain places, I want to use some common sense. And I'm not the only one talking
So
about
are you
it.
saying shutting down mosques is a common sense
I'm not
thing to
the
do?
only one talking about it. There's tremendous hatred coming out. And you know what? Radical Islamic terrorism is a fact. We have a president that nobody can understand. He doesn't want to use the term. Radical Islamic terrorism is a fact. Whether you like it or not, it's a fact. And it's a very gruesome fact. It's a very, very serious problem. We have a president that doesn't want to use the term. Unless you're going to use the term, you're not going to solve the problem. I don't even know if he wants to solve the problem, frankly. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Trump, what would your position have been with German Jewish refugees trying to come into this country in the late 1930s?
German Jewish refugees?
Yes.
I would have taken it.
You wouldn't take them?
Different story. Much different story. Much different story. They weren't going to knock down the World Trade Center. They weren't going to do damage. They weren't going to do what happened in Paris. Much different
Would
story.
you think your rhetoric is stoking fears?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's common sense. I think the reason I'm leading in every poll, and by the way, now more than ever, we had a poll today, 42%, another one at 38%, 38 Reuters. The reason I'm leading is because it's common sense. People are tired of being led by stupid people. Okay? They're tired of being led by stupid people. Okay.
Mr. Trump, you tweeted an article about Ben Carson's foreign policy struggles and who he has advising him. There were some questions.
You brought it up, I didn't.
But you tweeted
Am I
it
correct?
earlier. Yes, I brought it up. But you tweeted it
It's an
earlier
article. It's on the front page of the New York Times. It
Right.
says he's incapable of learning. That's a pretty serious problem. I don't want somebody incapable of learning foreign policy. When we have ISIS, when we have Iran, when we have all of these problems, we made Iran a great power because of our president's incompetence. And because of the incompetence of John Kerry, we've made Iran a great power. We've given them $150 billion. We've given them the right to go nuclear, as far as I'm concerned. And you're going to have nuclear proliferation all over the place. And we don't even get back our prisoners. And they can self-inspect. So we have done things that are beyond belief dumb, okay? when the New York Times, and again, you brought it up, I did not bring it up, but when the New York Times writes a devastating piece, not only the New York Times, there are many others. I happen to watch the show on Fox that some people refer to, and I frankly could not believe it. But when the New York Times says essentially that he's, from his top advisor and a couple of others, that he's essentially incapable of learning foreign policy, I mean, that's pretty sad.
The question, though, is who he's learning
Well,
it
excuse
from.
me, do you agree? Huh? You're a reporter, you're not allowed to agree.
Well, I think the question is more, though, who he's learning
Wait,
it from.
one second.
And I think that people have questions about who is advising you on foreign policy. So
Many
can you
people,
give us any
many
insight,
people,
any
top
names?
people, really smart people, and you know what? When they advise me, within about 2 seconds, I understand
But
what
is
they're
there any
saying.
way that we can
I don't
learn
always
more
agree with
about
them. Let me tell you. I don't always agree with them. For instance, I've been saying for a long time, if Russia wants to go in and bomb the hell out of ISIS, let them bomb. Now everyone says, you know, you were right. That was 2 months ago when it wasn't so popular. And I've been saying, why are we arming rebels to knock out Assad? Assad's a bad guy. But we're arming rebels who may be worse. In fact, some people think they're ISIS. And our administration doesn't even know who they are. So then everyone says, oh, well, Russia's not bombing ISIS. They are bombing ISIS. They just got knocked out a plane. They're really bombing ISIS, okay? They're really bombing ISIS. So I was right. I'm right about a lot of things.
Mr. Johnson, who's advising you on foreign policy?
Marco Rubio, he doesn't show up to votes. He's now in California campaigning, and he's got one of the most important votes that he's ever had, having to do with this whole horrible thing that's happening with radical Islamic terrorism. And Marco Rubio is nowhere to be found. He's out in California. He's got the worst voting record in the United States Senate. And it's disgraceful. He should be voting. And I'll be honest, if I were from Florida, I'd never vote for him. Because he's representing the people of Florida. He's a new senator. He's hardly been there. He's got the worst voting record. He's not representing them properly. And if I were living in Florida, or if I had a vote in Florida, I would never vote for him again.
Mr. Trump.
And I think that's why you probably saw the poll where I'm beating him very badly in Florida.
Mr. Trump, are you open to putting American troops on the ground in Syria?
If need be, yeah, we got to get rid of ISIS quickly, quickly. Not for a long time. Let me tell you what I really want to do. I want to get other people to put troops in the ground.
Like who?
And we'll back them up 100% and we'll bomb the hell out of them. But I want to get other countries. And one of the things we have to do, I think one of the most underutilized and poorly treated groups of people are the Kurds. They fight. They actually fight. And we don't treat them right. We don't get them the kind of equipment. We give equipment to others, and a bullet's fired in the air and they run. And the enemy takes over the equipment. 2,300 Humvees, armor-plated. One bullet gets fired, they're running. The Kurds have been fighters. Also, other countries. Now you look at the Gulf states, they're doing very little. They're really doing very little. You look at some of these other countries in the air, we got to get them energized. We got to get them to fight. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
So about your foreign policy experience.
I have a lot.
If the Paris attacks had happened on your watch, this
Right.
was the same question that was asked to Dr. Carson, who would be the first person you call?
Okay, first of all, let me just tell you something. If we had people where we had the Second Amendment there, people would have had guns in that room. And instead of having hundreds of people in these different areas with no protection, no guns whatsoever, you would have had